Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat exam EX342, Red Hat Certified Specialist in Linux Diagnostics and Troubleshooting. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you know when new content is available. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam's just under 2 weeks away, so I'm going through all of the posted objectives by Red Hat and either am trying to explain whatever the concept is behind the objective or do some exercises related to the objective. And at the end of the video, I'll do a little self-assessment and hopefully I'll feel confident with the objective. If not, I still have just under 2 weeks to brush up and fill in some knowledge gaps. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered authoritative information. I am learning just as you are, and I put these out on the internet in hopes that perhaps some of the things that I do to prepare might give you some ideas of things that you can create on your own for preparation. But understand that these should not be considered tutorials or used as authoritative information. So moving into the diagnose and troubleshoot system startup issues, we're going to look at identify and resolve service failures affecting boot. Now, this objective is kind of a curious one. I'm not 100% sure if it really is talking about things specifically or services specifically that would fail to cause a Linux system to actually, complete the boot process. Because if you think about it, if you're in the emergency target, you're not going to have a whole lot of stuff running. Later, I can definitely see on this exam, they will have a broken service or some type of dependency issue for a service, and you have to figure that out. So I think for my practice session here, I'm going to try to create some scenarios that might be reasonable that I would have on the exam. But of course, there's no way for me to know what I'm going to have on the exam, and even if I did know what was on the exam after taking it, I can't share it because of NDA and all that kind of stuff. But I think the thing to keep in mind is just general troubleshooting methods of dealing with services. So I just want to start a new terminal session. Let's go into, I'll just use lab server 1 for this. And what I'm going to do is basically create a problem and see what it looks like and then fix it. The problem with these kind of things for preparing is it's a contrived thing. I mean, you already know what you're breaking, but the value you could possibly get is seeing, so with this particular type of problem, this is what output in journal D or whatever looks like. So if you're encountering an issue on the exam and you see journal D outlook that looks familiar, it might give you kind of a leg up on where to start looking. Let's do a couple of things here. Let's see if postfix is installed. Okay, it is not installed. So let's install postfix. And this example might not work the way that I'm hoping and thinking, but we'll see. And let's install Apache as well. Apache tends to be the experimental service that everyone learns stuff on. So sudo install, I'm already as root. DNF install httpd. I'm going to do -y for that. All right, so under normal circumstances, these services can obviously operate independently of one another. But let's take a look at the actual systemd unit file. And notice this, within the unit file, this after, basically what this says, if you start the postfix service, grumble. Sometimes I will forget, I'll forget the exact meaning of these. This is something that I'm going to need to review more before the exam, because you have before and after. That's basically, those are dependencies that time when things should start. For example, if there is a dependency on this syslogin network target, then postfix should not start until those targets are already done. And then before would be this thing needs to be in this thing needs to start before these other targets or other services or whatever the dependency is. Conflicts is basically saying that these cannot exist at the same time. So if, and I may be wrong with this, so this is one of the things I'm going to need to get more straight in my head. You could of course look at the man pages for systemd, which I'm not going to do in this this practice session, but on the exam 100%, I might briefly look at the man pages, make sure I have all this right in my head if I'm encountering a systemd kind of thing. But if I'm correct, conflicts is basically saying if, let's say, sendmail.service is running, if you run postfix, it's going to stop sendmail.service. And the wanted by, if I believe when multi-user target starts, then the postfix service is also going to start. I'm not 100% sure of that. So, if you critique the video, by all means, I accept criticism of all kind, but just understand that I'm saying I need to review some of this stuff more. But what I want to do is I'm going to try to create a problem. So we're going to edit this file. One of the things I like when you do systemctl cat is it gives you the exact path of the file. And what I'm going to do is basically make an impossible situation. I'm going to get rid of these two just to make this more clear, and change that to httpd.service, and let us take a look at httpd's. All this kind of stuff has to be going. What I'm wanting to do might not actually work. Basically, I'm wanting to have both httpd and postfix say they have to start after one another, which of course the services will never be able to start. Yeah, this probably is not going to work. But let's see what happens. So check the status of postfix. And it ran. Oh, goody. So wasn't expecting that. Let's try to start HTTPD, see what happens. Well, that isn't what I was expecting. Let me stop both of these. I think I know what I need to do. Okay, so postfix service httpd.service. That didn't do anything that I wanted to do, and I think I have an idea why. Oh, well, I might have broken them being able to stop. Failed to stop httpd.service, so let's see. Okay, so what I should have done to make my initial problem was to make one of them require the other and then have after for both of them. But yeah, it's kind of odd that this affects it when the services are having to stop. But either way, from a logical perspective, we wouldn't have them both trying to run at the same time and they're both after the exact same thing. Yeah, this is something I need to review a bit more. So what I'm going to do, how to get out of this? I guess what I could do, since I've totally mangled the unit file, I just thought of another mistake that I made. I needed to have done systemctl daemon reload. But I guess it got reloaded at some, well, it wouldn't make sense that starting the service itself would have it reread the unit file. All right, so I'll bet this would have broken at the starting point if I had done the systemctl daemon reload. So let's see if I can fix this by reinstalling the packages. That might fix these the systemd unit files. So let's see what happens if I do that. So dnf reinstall httpd and postfix. This probably won't, or maybe I should have just blown away the systemd unit file. Let's see what this does. All right, that does look like that fixed the unit file for that. Let's look at httpd's unit file. Yeah, so that did fix the unit file. Excellent. Let's see if we can stop them now. Or let's do systemctl daemon reload and systemctl stop httpd.service and postfix.service. Check the status of both of them. Well, I guess that's one way to fix it. Obviously, well, I guess it was complaining there. Anyway, let's take a look real quick. I think it's systemd unit. Nope. Well, it's the man page just for the unit files. Systemd.unit is what I want. So man systemd.unit. Should take me right to man 5, but yeah, it did. All right, so in the systemd.unit, this is where you can get your description of some of the dependency directives. And this is something that I'm going to need to review. And this is probably something that's worth memorizing. It's one of these things that I generally have documentation available to me if I have to remember them. And quite frankly, I'm writing systemd unit files so infrequently, it's not something I keep on the front side of my head, but it would be worth doing that for the exam. Requires was what I was thinking of that I needed to add. And some of these, like one of the differences between once, requires, and requisite. For requisite, if the thing that is listed here can't start or isn't started, it's going to fail, versus once and requires, I believe, will allow what it wants to not start. Yeah, this is what I was thinking about here. Before, if you have defined before and after, that will, if the services are, because systemd can do stuff in parallel, if the services are started simultaneously, one will wait for the other. But if you start them simultaneously and they both are after one another, then you've made a loop that can't be solved, and systemd will error out for you. But just doing things with once, requires, requisite, that does not dictate before and after. That just says, hey, these services need to be running. So I would say for the exam, if I assess myself for this, it's not a complete fail, but I need to spend some time to make sure I have these terms solid in my head before I take the exam. But you do have the offline documentation if in a pinch you have forgotten something. Now, for the piece that's talking about service failures affecting boot, the only thing I can really, or I guess we can do this. It's probably going to be a lot of stuff, but we'll see. Systemctl list dependencies, and we'll say multi-user.target. And I think one of the dependencies for this, like basic.target. So let's take a look at what the dependencies of basic.target are. Clear my screen here. Systemctl list dependencies basic.target. See if there's anything that would be, probably sysinit.target. So let's take a look at systemctl list dependencies sysinit.target. Okay, this is a fairly low level thing. It would make sense that, just looking at some of these here, journald service. I wonder, well, I can't imagine that like breaking boot. This might be something where I might need to do some Dr. Googling and look at Red Hat documentation, and perhaps they have some documentation about like some of their boot troubleshooting stuff. But my gut tells me on the exam, this is really going to be more about just troubleshooting systemd services rather than specifically to boot, even though the objective here says identify and resolve service failures affecting boot. I'm not sure if that affecting boot necessarily means of the CPU, but of course it's under this section, so I may be wrong. And if I am, I might be toast on the exam, but we'll see. So again, I'm going to consider this kind of a, not a full-fledged pass, but not an awful failure. I do need to get the dependency terms right in my head better and go from there. So not sure there's a whole lot of value in this particular practice session for others, but there's value in it for me, recognizing that I need to make sure I have those terms right in my head. So if you did find use of the video, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers again for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who hasn't subscribed to click the subscribe button. As always, thank you for your time, and I will see you the next time.